It's okay. We've changed systems. We've changed. I'm jumping around from one app to another. This is why I'm starting to think this would be the benefit of having a dedicated room where you just walk into it. It's always set up the same. Nothing ever changes. Nobody touches anything, and you just sit down and everything works. Unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. We deal with constant changes. We're trying to get one computer to do everything, including be a recording studio. And
that's right.
It works great, but when it doesn't work, it can be frustrating. In fact, Chad, I think earlier today you had applied the most recent Mac OS update, and you were having some audio issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not uncommon, right? I mean,
no,
that happens.
it doesn't.
Whoa, the camera just fell. That even happens to us at times.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what your experience level is. It's something kind of one of the many evils we have to learn to deal with and accept and just roll with it. Yeah, I applied the update and restarted my Mac, and then I couldn't, for the life of me, get Teams to pick up my headphones so I could hear you. And it's just, we have to extend a lot of grace to each other these days.
Yeah. So when that happens, some tips, some tricks, you could try, what's that?
Just change source is what usually works for me. Changing to, say, if I want to choose my headphones, I'll choose system sound, for example, and then switch back. That typically works. Occasionally it doesn't, but most of the time that just changing sources will help. Yeah.
Check your source, change your source. And sometimes I've even had to turn Bluetooth off and back on if my AirPods are not working correctly.
That's a good idea too.
And then if you don't have Bluetooth, go back to a corded solution and until you can fix your Bluetooth. But so what I want to talk about today is kind of going back to the basics of management. But some of this is brand new for a lot of people because Apple is constantly changing things. Before we get into that, Chad, I wanted to do a follow-up on Silver Sparrow.
Sure.
Because 2 weeks ago, that was in the news. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was concerned about it. I haven't heard much recently. Anything happened with Silver Sparrow?
There's not much to tell. The way we left it last time is it was this very mysterious new type of, and let's take that with a grain of salt, right? It's all new because the architecture is new. M1 architecture, and the Apple ecosystem is brand new. And so we expect to see new things, right? Are they worse? Are they more insidious? That has yet to be seen. Silver Sparrow is a great case in point because it didn't do anything. It didn't deliver any, nefarious act. There wasn't any outcome to it. It was just discovered on the machines. Tony and Katie from Red Canary, Thomas Reed too, Malwarebytes. They very quickly established a synthesis of that and shared that. And there really hasn't been much activity since. So we can expect more excitement.
So excellent fire drill for the community to get ready for potential issues in the future. And I don't know if you noticed, but can you see my screen? I shared my screen. Can you see it?
I can.
Sharing my screen. Okay. Just want to make sure. Earlier today, I was sharing my screen and it was not visible. And I'm going to try to follow chat. Yes, you can see my screen. Thank you, Holly. Yeah. And Chad, if you can help me, if anyone wants to post a question or comment in chat, that would be great. Chad and I will do our best to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're not aware, we're moving our blog posting to the Ntiva domain. So under resources, Ntiva blog. And if you click on I think it's the Apple tag, right here, you'll see all the Apple articles. This is the most recent one Chad posted a couple weeks ago. And related to Silver Sparrow, I want to mention, and related to the conversation that Chad talked about how he updated his operating system, had some audio issues this morning. There is an update under the Apple menu.
That's another out of band too, which is important to note. Out of band releases are critical. There are things that aren't part of the regular, calendar, the scheduled releases of updates, which means that there's usually something that has emerged in the wild. And this is the case in point. There was another vulnerability discovered. Shout out to Clément Lessine from Google's Threat Analysis Group and Alison Huffman of the Microsoft Browser Vulnerability Research Center. They uncovered a flaw that had to do with remote code execution in the browser. And so this update specifically addresses that CVE, that particular vulnerability. We recommend that it's 14.4.1 now in iOS, and that's essential. I would recommend everybody updates as soon as you can.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. So the Apple released yesterday afternoon, I think, iOS, as you said, iOS 14.4.1, iPad OS 14.4.1, Watch OS 7.3.2, which you get through your iPhone in order to apply the patch to your watch, and then Mac OS 11.2.3. So you can see I'm still running 11.2.2. 11.2.3 came out, and there are multiple ways to update. You may have automatically keep my Mac up to date, which means it's going to try tonight to run that update. Sorry, I think it says that somewhere. I thought it used to. Maybe it doesn't anymore. It will try to run that update if you let it sit long enough at night, plugged in, connected to the internet, all those things that you may or may not be doing. We also will have, for our clients who are under our management system, we do apply updates. And I just want to reiterate again, there are differences. Let me minimize this. How do I do not disturb? Okay, there are differences between.
Just FYI, Ben, I still see the blog post. I'm not seeing whatever you're doing.
Yeah, my screen sharing is really delayed.
Yeah, just FYI, I just see the Silver Sparrow blog post is what I see on your screen.
I've got to, I had a meeting yesterday with people from Zoom. Actually, that had nothing to do with troubleshooting. We were talking with a client about moving to Zoom, and I was sharing my screen, and this started happening. So it started happening yesterday. My screen sharing is not happening in Zoom on par with what I would expect. And to be fair, maybe it's not Zoom. Maybe it's all my apps. My computer, I restarted before the presentation. My next troubleshooting step will be to go look at my router and my local network. It seems to be working, except for screen sharing, but maybe I need to restart
your voice
my router.
and your video are solid. So it's probably not the network.
Okay. But right now you see software update window.
Now it's working. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's just really delayed because I didn't change anything. We'll move on. We've been doing this for a year. This is the first time in a year I can't screen share properly. So we'll get back there.
That's good record.
But updates are tricky. I just want to talk through updates briefly. And a reminder, we're talking about updates, incremental updates. This is an update as opposed to an upgrade. If you're not running Big Sur, don't upgrade to Big Sur just because you see I'm running
just to get this right.
In fact, I would say historically, we wouldn't start recommending a new Mac OS upgrade until we see something like 11.3 or 11.4. We're not there yet. This is a minor point release, 11.2.3. If this did not require a restart, this one does. If I go to more info, it requires a restart.
Really quick too, that if for folks that are not running Big Sur, there is an update for Catalina. It's Safari, right? It's a Safari related issue, right? So they've issued updates for Catalina and Mojave, just, so you don't feel left out if you're not running Big Sur.
Man, I could have sworn before the presentation, I looked at the screen and it specifically said it will require a restart, but I don't see that right now. But I know it requires a restart. And the reason that's important is when you have automation, you don't want automation to just start surprising your team with restarts, right?
Right.
That doesn't
Right.
go over well
Well
at
at all.
all.
No, no,
Uh,
no.
so we will rely on Apple's prompting to apply this type of update. However, we also have a tool that internally we call Nudge, and I wanted to try to show you that myself, but in order to invoke it, I have to make some changes because I can't just, it's a behind the scenes binary. It doesn't run as an app. But this is what it looks like. I want to share this because this is what we use when people have not restarted their machine or they have not, applied those updates, and we really want them to. So your team will see this update box pop up, and it will tell them, relevant to the update, what they need to do. And we try to tell you how long it's going to take. This says 15 to 20 minutes. Some of these
It's
updates do
ballpark.
take 15 to 20 minutes. And we don't want you to think, oh, I'm just going to restart my machine. I'll be right back and join that meeting in 10 minutes. And then you come back to a screen that says it's going to be 20 minutes. So,
which is great. I mean, we want you to update. It's really, really important. It's easy to put these off and increase your risk to, no one wants to ruin their day if we can prevent it. And so when you get prompted, try to work that into your schedule without impacting your productivity.
And what will happen with Nudge is we give people the option to either start it or ignore it up to the days remaining. In this example, 64 days, that's plenty of time. But if on the last day they still haven't done it, they have to do it. So that's the best we could come up with. We're always looking for ideas on how to apply updates that require restarts. But yeah, it's not easy. So yes, there is an update. Yes, it's safe to apply, but it's not super urgent. Don't freak out if you haven't applied it. I haven't applied it. It just came out yesterday. So I will do that probably at the end of the day because I have too many meetings and it's going to disrupt my day if I do it any other way. Okay, so that's a little bit about updates and why they're important and how we apply them. But it's case-by-case situation. If you don't understand in your environment how updates are being applied, let us know and we can answer those questions.
Yeah. There's a lot of confusion because there's updates to the operating system. There's updates to your browser, for example. And then even within the browser, there are plugins and extensions that a lot of us install to add functionality to the browsers. And it's really, really important to keep all of that stuff up to date. It's easy to fall out of, fall way back in terms of applying those updates. And if you're, for example, the browser plugins and extensions, that's a great conversation because it ties into the Silver Sparrow one. And as far as we can speculate, most of the people who were infected with Silver Sparrow we don't have proof of this. This is just speculation again, was through installing some kind of web extension or plugin. And we take it for granted because there's tons of them out there and they're free and you can just go crazy installing extensions and plugins on your browser, whatever browser you use. It could be Safari or it could be Chrome or it could be Firefox, but please try to be mindful of the plugins and extensions you use. If you're not using one, uninstall it, get rid of it. If you're installing one, make sure it's by a reputable developer and that it's actively being supported because that's something that is preventable. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, speaking of that, let's see if my screen sharing is working. And tell me, Chad, I'm going to go to Safari preferences. Okay,
that's pretty snappy now.
I'm going to go to extensions, and in Safari, these are the add-ins or extensions. So I have two. I have 1Password, which is absolutely essential. Love it. And I also have Grammarly for Safari, which I think is also essential, and I love it. But I have in the past had more than this, and occasionally I will go in, like I'll test something, and then maybe I forget about it.
Right. It's easy. It's easy to do.
And yeah, easy to do. So go in here, see what you're running. If you're running something you don't use anymore, just get rid of it, because if it turns out there's a security issue with that and you forget you're even running it, then you could be at risk. So yeah, great reminder, Chad. Thanks for that. And every browser has similar concepts. They may not look the same. They may not be called the same. But Safari, it's an extension. Okay, while I'm here in the browser, let's see, do we have okay, now we can
It's working now. It's real snappy now.
Yeah,
that's great.
Okay. I wanted to share this. I don't remember if we talked about this in the past or not. And sorry, my camera keeps shifting. But is Apple Silicon ready? Have you heard of this website, Chad?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay. And it's pretty up to date too. It's surprisingly up to date. So whoever's doing that is doing a nice job. Shout out to them. Yeah,
shout out to whoever built this. And I should have done my research and I should know who it is, but I'm sure we can look around here and find out. But this is basically a website that tells us if the software that we're using is ready for the Apple M1 chip. Just as a reminder, we're not recommending the Apple M1 chip for most of our clients. Apple introduced the M1 chip to their entry-level machines. We rarely recommended entry-level machines to our business professional clients in the first place. So even though the M1 chip is very enticing and we're hearing a lot of good things about it, we have to be careful because it's not always optimized for the software that we use. And I know we have a lot of clients who use Adobe software. So if we go to Adobe software, we see that there is so this is M1 optimized. No. Looks like there's a beta, another beta, and a beta. No. Okay, Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom. For some reason, that is the one app that if you live in 24/7, then you might be fine with an M1 chip. But if you run any of these other apps, although they will run, they will have to run in what is called Rosetta 2. And Rosetta 2 is basically an application that fools the software into thinking that it's still running on an Intel chip, even though it's not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I see here, it makes it think it's still running the old one.
I don't even know what Adobe Dimension is. I must admit, I don't know that.
I know who we need to give a shout out to this for. Abdullah Dia from Istanbul.
Abdullah Dia. Okay.
Yeah, well done. Thank you. Yeah, great work.
And I don't know if Adobe Dimension ever ran on the Mac or why it doesn't run either. But yeah, don't go M1 if you run that application. Yeah. Now the good news is if you're Office 365, if I could type. Office 365, M1 optimized. Here, let's see. Microsoft might be a better term. Yeah, Microsoft.
There you go. That's a good choice.
So, but Teams. That's an app I live in a lot these days. Is not yet optimized. Microsoft To Do. I played around with that. I think it's a great app. Not yet optimized, but everything else is optimized. So that's great. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. The last thing about the M1 chip that is being talked about a lot is the built-in graphics capabilities of the M1 chip. The summary is, and this is always debatable, but the summary is that if you're a graphics intensive or graphics heavy professional, that you rely on rendering on your screen, especially large screens, you probably want to wait for the next iteration that Apple releases of the M1 or M1X or whatever they call it, because it's going to have more graphics power than this entry-level M1 chip. So another reason why I would tend to avoid the M1 chip unless you live in the Microsoft world and you don't use Teams. Who is that? Who's that anymore?
Yeah, right. That's something. I mean, everybody's using some persistent messaging tool, whether it's Slack or Teams or whatever. I wonder if Teams will be compatible soon. That's
eventually. Yeah.
Well, eventually for sure. But.
Yeah. Okay. So what we have 10 more minutes left, and what I want to talk about is this web page we have, which I remember as appletoolkit.com, but it does redirect to an Ntiva domain. And I just want to talk about the process, the steps. Yeah, this methodology that we created. And, even for existing clients, for clients that have worked with us for years, I just had a conversation with a client and I said, I want to bring you through our new methodology, because even though you have a lot of things in place, we're missing a few pieces to get you where we want to be. And this is our methodology. And I want to talk briefly about the phase one. That's where we start. And I'm going to go to this keynote presentation, just show a couple quick slides. Chad, can you see my keynote presentation?
Yep, looks great.
Okay. So the reason that we want to build this foundation and follow this methodology is because Apple has recently, and I say recently meaning in the past year, released and promoted a solution called Zero Touch. And in the Windows world, it's most similar to Autopilot. If anyone out there is familiar with Windows Autopilot, which I believe uses Intune, Zero Touch is Apple's equivalent. And Zero Touch means that IT does not have to touch the device, does not have to touch it for deployment, and really rarely has to touch it after deployment. I mean, other than hardware issues, there's really less and less of a reason for IT teams to physically touch a computer or an iPhone or an iPad.
They're trying to deliver the consumer experience, right? Of like getting a new computer and opening it and making that as close to that, kind of purist, just got back from the App Store or the Mac Store or the Apple Store, the physical store, right? Get it in the mail and you open it and it's just this really pleasurable experience.
Right, that is the goal. And some of the benefits, not only does IT not have to take time to touch a machine that then gets shipped somewhere else, you can ship directly to your employee, but the employee gets a better experience. It's not a brand new machine that's been opened, configured, manipulated, and given to them. It truly is a brand new machine. And we all know, whether you'll admit to it or not, I think we can all agree we like opening new things, right?
For sure.
There's a little different, brand new things out of the box are a little different than things that have already been opened that are given to us. So Apple really promotes that story, and I can't disagree with it, that your employees value that computer even more if they get to unbox it. So how do we get to Zero Touch? This is a modern deployment method. We're trying to help all of our clients get there, and we have to have three pieces in place before we can even think about Zero Touch. First is authorized purchases. You have to buy from an authorized location. If you buy directly from Apple, of course, they're authorized. If you buy from an authorized Apple reseller, I know within Ntiva, we often work with B&H Photo. They are authorized. I know in the Chicago area, a lot of people, because they're in the suburbs and because they're huge, they buy from CDW. They are also Apple authorized. But you have to buy from a location that you can prove, I'm authorized as an organization to buy here, and this organization knows my organization. And that's the concept behind it, and we can help you set that up. Even if you have an existing relationship, we just need to get a couple numbers in place, an Apple customer number, which we can help you with, and then the number from the place you're purchasing, whether it's Apple or B&H or CDW. So once we know that, we put those numbers into your Apple Business Manager account. And Apple Business Manager is also a free service from Apple that any business can apply for and obtain. And once again, we can help you get that account. Some of you may already have that account. And if you do, that's great. We just need to add those authorized purchasing numbers to the account so you link those together. Or you may already have those linked together. Even better, you're well ahead of most people out there who have no clue what I'm talking about until now. And then the last piece to get to Zero Touch is you need a mobile device management solution that you can connect to your Apple Business Manager. And basically, when you buy from an authorized purchaser, Apple knows it's your computer. So they put it into the system, which means it shows up in Apple Business Manager as your computer. And then Apple Business Manager talks to your mobile device management system, which in our situation with our clients, we bring to the table. It talks to that system and says, what do you want this computer to do? So when that employee takes that computer out of the box and they connect it to the internet, which that's what everybody does now. Nobody works on a computer without the internet. But when they connect it to the internet, it checks in with the MDM, mobile device management service, and says, what do you need me to do? And based on how that's configured, it may say, I need you to install Office 365. I need you to, block the upgrade of Big Sur because we're not ready for Big Sur. Actually, that's a bad example because if you buy a computer today, it's going to ship with Big Sur. But it is possible to block Big Sur. So it's going to lay down your security policies. It's going to lay down your software. It's going to do all those things that IT would typically do to prep a machine before it's given to an employee. And zero touch means we don't touch it, but obviously your employee is going to touch it, and your employee is going to walk through the Apple setup configuration. And then we still recommend, and Chad, we just lost your camera, by the way, whether you're back. We still recommend spending some time talking to that employee, whether it's a brand new employee, especially a brand new employee, or an existing employee who's getting a new Mac. So IT, instead of spending time doing all those things we used to do, we've automated it. It works out of the box. Now we can spend some more valuable time talking to them about, answering their questions, maybe helping them set up two-factor authentication on their new account. We can really spend some quality time with them. What's that, Chad?
Less annoying things, more valuable things, maybe.
Yeah,
right. Whereas before, it just seemed like a lot of jumping through a lot of hoops and things that we needed them there for, but wasn't particularly enjoyable from their perspective. And the goal is to make the whole process a more pleasant experience, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say even those people, some people, are so good at this, they'll take it out of the box. They'll do everything that needs to get done. There's really nothing for IT to do, but still having that check-in, having that introduction, asking if they have any questions. There's always, there's typically one question somebody has, and then you can have a conversation. And I much prefer having those conversations as opposed to the ones where it's like, hey, nothing's working, and I have no idea why. You just gave me a computer and it doesn't make any sense to me.
So do they. They love that too, right?
Yeah.
It's a win-win. Right. I mean, there's some time involved, right? Depending on how much, a laptop, for example, has to pull down, right, to install. So sometimes there's some patience involved, but it's a completely different experience than what you might be used to.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good point, Chad. It's not like Apple cannot magically install something until it's unboxed and connected. So there are certain things we would not recommend you auto install. Like the Adobe Creative Suite is a huge install. Yeah. Don't try to install that out of the box. Do the basics, and then give your employee the option through, we call it Mac Manage or self-service. They could then load the remaining software that they're missing themselves. Yeah. Or some of that stuff can happen, but to your point, Chad, you're going to spend time in the browser, maybe logging into your email account and setting up your two-factor and doing some of those things while in the background your desktop apps are being installed. So it's a different experience. I know some people we've talked to are a little freaked out about it, like this sounds too different, but once you get into it, it's really great. So that's where we want to be. We want to see all of our clients get to zero touch, and the way to do that is to lay that foundation of those three pieces. So once we have those three pieces
set up,
once we have those, we're set up with phase one, and there's more detail to it. If you need help with it, let us know. There are certain email addresses we would recommend that you set up. Some of these accounts have to have a dedicated Apple ID email that can only be used for your Apple Business Manager and nothing else. So those are just examples.
That might be a whole live stream on that.
Yeah, Apple IDs is definitely a whole live stream, but we don't have time for that today. And what we'll do over the next few live streams is we'll go further down this methodology, talk about the way how we can enroll machines that are not brand new, not out of the box, how we can enroll machines that are already in the field. And then we'll talk. I'm just going to have to leave my camera because it just keeps falling at this point. And then we're going to talk about patching and compliance. That's where we
Everyone's
start getting
favorite.
into some fun, some fun stuff.
No, it's not. But it's important. It is important.
It's important. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, we're keeping this to half hour. I went 1 minute over. I think that's pretty good.
Well done.
See you all in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining us. I hope I didn't miss any Q&A, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.